What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench for a brand new episode here on Ben Builds with the Boys. We are back with our 1/48 scale Academy P-38G, and today we're going to be moving on with some painting, so it should be fun. We're going to start off with some detail painting here on the propeller blades. Each of these tips have to be yellow, so we're going to mask them off with some Tamiya tape, come on back with some nice flat white. That's going to give us a good base coat, and then we can come in with some flat yellow to go ahead and give it those nice yellow tips. I go ahead and recommend overcoating it first with white because it makes the yellow cover much nicer, and also it kind of makes that yellow pop a little bit more. So I think white's a good base coat. Then we're going to move into the actual painting of the aircraft. So we're going to do some pre-shade, going to do some post-shade, going to be using some Gunzy olive drab. It's going to be, I think, OD1 there for the top coat, and then of course Tamiya neutral gray for the underside, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. Let's focus on the top coats first, do some detail painting, get in there, do some pre-shading. Going to be using some either flat brown or maybe red brown, depending on how I feel. Use that as our pre-shade. Then we're going to cover all the panel lines and come back in with that Gunzy OD green, and we'll be rocking and rolling. So let's go ahead and jump into that first time lapse, see what we can do. Let's start doing some painting. All right, everybody, we are back, and so far so good. The painting came out really fun. I like the colors, I like the pre-shade. We're going to jump in now though with some chipping. Now, if you remember last episode, I applied a little bit of chipping solution over the center panels right around that cockpit gondola. So what I want to go ahead and do today is come in with a very stiff brush and a little bit of just basic water, and we're just going to start chipping away at the paint to get it looking a little bit more used. P-38s usually have a lot of chipping around this area, so I'm going to go a little on the heavy side. I can always come back, fade it in, or do some weathering on top of that to go ahead and give it a more blended appearance, but we're going to start off and do a little bit of chipping. So this way I get to practice, get to have a little fun, and we'll see how it looks. So let's jump back into the time lapse. I'm going to go ahead and run through the chipping, and then I'll be back and I'll kind of walk you through what happened and what I think of it, and then we can get back into the action. Let's go ahead and jump in first here, get that time lapse going. Let's go ahead and do some chipping. Just a real quick break here, guys. As you can see, we did add that chipping in there. I like how it looks. It's a little stark in certain areas, but I can always come back, do a little bit of post shade on there, do some oil washes. This paint actually chipped really, really well. This Mr. Color, this is that OD green. Great finish. Absolutely love it. So let's go ahead and jump back in now, and we're going to continue on the undersurface, which is going to be neutral gray. I'm going to do some pre-shade with some NATO black, and we're going to keep it rolling, and then eventually be back and start working on those demarcation lines. All right, everybody, we are back, and the P-38 is coming right along. Our basic colors are down. We got the OD green on top. We got the neutral gray on the bottom, a little bit of pre-shade, a little bit of post-shade. We did a little blending on there as well. So now we're going to come in, and I'm going to try to add something a little bit different. I'm going to try to go ahead and highlight some of the panel lines. Now, from what I've seen from the references, a lot of times when the aircraft were shipped overseas, they would have areas that are taped off to protect the internal components from salt water and corrosion and whatnot. So what we're going to go ahead and try to do is replicate that. And we're going to take some Tamiya tape and cut very thin strips of these, about 1 millimeter thick, and go ahead and tape around different areas, like the front nose, the ammo bay doors, some of the panels there for the nacelles, for the engines, a couple of top panel lines as well for the upper portions of the nacelles. We're really going to go ahead and try to use references as close as we can, but I don't have a lot of pictures for the entire aircraft, so we just have pictures of the nose and one of the nacelles. So I'm going to try to just kind of pull out information out of that and see what I can do and use a little bit of artistic license and just go with it. We can come back in with some very light mixture of NATO black, trace all of those taped panel lines, and that should give us a darkening around each of the edges of the tape, which is what you see on a lot of the pictures. I have no idea if it's going to work, but we're going to give it a try. And this should be the perfect kit to go ahead and experiment just a little bit. So I've got my pieces of tape cut. We're going to go ahead and add our first tape here on the side nacelle, the upper panel line. We're going to go ahead and just drop one piece of tape right like that, and we're going to smooth it down. We're going to trim it down to size, and we're going to continue doing that around all the different panel lines on the upper portions of the nacelles, on the sides where the engine access panels would be, on the front nose around the ammo bay doors, a couple of panel lines there. I will say that the Academy kit doesn't have all the panel lines that would be on the actual aircraft, so we're going to have to go ahead and, using our references, add in a few extras. And I might have to come back a little bit later and re-scribe them. I don't know for sure if just painting them will be enough, but we might have to come back in and do a little bit more work. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and take care of these panel lines with some tape and some paint, and we're going to see what we can do. So let's jump back into our time lapse, guys, and start going over all of the panel lines. We're going to tape them up. Then we're going to come in with some very thin mixture of NATO black. We're going to shade each of these panel lines. And then we're going to go ahead and use a little bit of buff color to lighten up a few extra panels on the tops of the wings. And then we're going to blend everything together with some OD green and neutral gray, because it could be a pretty stark difference. Then I want to go ahead and switch over to the wheel bay doors. I want to install those. I want to get the wheels more or less set up and ready to go to be installed. And I think that's going to be it for us today. So let's jump back on in. One more time lapse to go. Let's go ahead and push on. We're getting there. All right, everybody, we are back, and those panel lines took forever to tape and to paint. I would say a little bit under 3 hours to go ahead and tape everything off, and then about 20 minutes to paint and remove them. Ultimately, though, I'm glad I tried them out, and I think it looks pretty cool. But as you can see, they do jump out at you. It's a very different look, and I kind of dig it. I don't know, might have to come in and do a little alteration there. But as you can see, we've got them on the undersurfaces as well as the side of the nacelles, and then of course the top of the aircraft kind of looks kind of interesting. They were a bit stark though, so I did come in and kind of blend them together with the top coats, but you can see them around the nose cone, you can see them around the ammo bay doors, around the different parts on the nacelles and the engines. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I also went ahead and put together the propellers. I'm going to be using a piece of toothpick for the spindle, and I'm not going to go ahead and leave them loose. I'm probably going to glue them in once I figure out the position I want them in, but I needed to kind of rethink that because I ended up changing from what the instructions told me to do because I wanted to install them after the fact. I didn't want to fight them as I'm in there painting and masking and all that good stuff. So I think it's going to be fine in the end. Quick zoom in here for you and you can see some of the details. We've got that chipping in the center section right there, and you can see all the panel lines taped off and airbrushed. I think they'll pop a little bit more once I start adding some weathering like some panel liners or an oil wash or something, but you can see them throughout the nose and the sides of the nacelles, around the engine plates and around the different intakes and whatnot. This is a very interesting look for sure. I did have to come in and blend them out just a tad, and even so, I probably could have gone even further and blended them more, but they're pretty prominent on the aircraft, so I tried to match up what I had in the references. So it was a fun experience. As you can see, I do have the chipping here. I might need to come in and do a little bit of post shading on the chipping so it doesn't stand out too much. But I think once I start adding some weathering, it'll tone it down, and I think it'll blend it into the surface a little bit better. And then of course we have the wheels installed there. They're not glued in, but I did glue in the hubcaps that I made out of that styrene sheet. And I think those look the part. They're a little proud though, but I think it'll be fine at 3 foot. Not a problem. I also worked a bit on the superchargers, as you can see them right here. I have to install them and then come in and airbrush some exhaust staining coming off the tops of those. And there's actually more of like a chalky white color, not our typical like dark brown or black. So that's going to be a little tricky to do. Plus weathering and all that good stuff to tone them down a little bit. And then of course we have our drop tanks. I did see in my references that it looks like they are half and half. They are OD green on top and they're that neutral gray onto the undersurface. So I tried to go ahead and do that with a real quick piece of tape to go ahead and give them a nice clean demarcation line. I think they're okay. It's not perfect, mind you. Once I go ahead and get the rest of the aircraft done, we can go ahead and install these right here where these holes are. But I'll do that after I go ahead and gloss coat and decal and weather. So I don't want to have to fight them as I'm doing all those extra steps. I also went ahead and installed the gear bay doors. You can see them right here for the nose wheel and for the nacelles. Didn't fit it well, but I got them in. And then of course we went ahead and put together our propellers, and I needed to come in and do a little bit of extra work on that. Bit of a seam issue with this. The panel line that Academy gives you to go ahead and put these together is an incorrect panel line. It actually should be completely smooth up to the very nose cone. So we might have to come in and do a little work on that, but I don't know for sure. We're going to think about it. I might just leave them and just say we're good to go. But that is it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to go check out Joe's build and Charlie's build. Charlie's all finished up with his Putt-Putt Maru. It looks fantastic. It's a great little model. And Joe is hard at work like I am, plugging away, seeing what we can get done. But until then, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. And we'll see you back here on episode 6 for more Ben Builds with the Boys and our P-38G. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.